Yesterday afternoon, C-SPAN 2. Former Director, Pediatric Neurosurgery, Johns Hopkins University, Dr. Ben Carson was the guest. And during the caller Q&A, a guy named Brad in St. Augustine, Florida, called in and said to Dr. Carson, I'd like to ask you a two-part question. The first being, what is your opinion of Rush Limbaugh? Secondly, do you feel that Limbaugh has a positive or negative impact on society?
I think Rush Limbaugh serves a very useful purpose in our society because he breaks things down. He looks at things, he analyzes it. Some of his analysis, I might not agree with, but a lot of them I do agree with. And because a lot of people have tried to demonize him, people look at what he says in light of that demonization as opposed to the merits of what it is.
He is so right about that last part. Little update. One day last week, it might have been Friday. It was either Thursday or Friday. I told you how I had studied the media, and I've been particularly interested in the tech media. And I drew the analogy for you that the tech media, as a universe, they're probably all 99%, 95% liberal Democrats in their politics. But within that universe, you subdivide it further. You have, in their universe, instead of Republicans versus Democrats, you've got Apple as a political party, in my analogy. And then you've got Google and Samsung and Android as a political party, in my analogy. And I find it fascinating that in the tech media, you can find the exact portrayal of Republicans and Democrats in tech media as Apple and Samsung and Android and Google are portrayed. And I made the point that the pro-Apple bloggers are just livid at the factually incorrect, erroneous bias against Apple. And my point was, could all of you who are Apple fans, tech bloggers, could you learn to look at ABC and CBS and NBC, the mainstream media, the same way you're looking at the pro-Samsung media? I looked at it as a teachable moment. I went through it. I explained it explicitly. Could not have been more clear. I explained it at a third grade level. And then I said, I'm not going to mention any blogs or bloggers because I'm too big and they're too chump change, and I don't want to elevate them. I don't want to make them bigger than they are. That's not the point. If I talk about them and identify them, then they're just going to get even snarkier and so forth. And that happened. A couple of tech blogs wrote up a reaction to my comments, totally misunderstanding it. Totally, I think purposely getting it wrong. They did exactly what Dr. Carson said here. Because a lot of people have demonized Limbaugh. People look at what he says in light of the demonization as opposed to the merits of what he says. And that's exactly what happened on a couple of tech blogs over the weekend. Because in their minds, I am this lying, racist, sexist, whatever. That judgment of me thus rendered everything I said viewed in that light and therefore as unqualified and unknowledgeable. It was fascinating. And it's kind of frustrating. I was trying to make an inroad and offer some thinking people in there an opportunity to educate other people on media bias. Because these people every one of these people believe everything they read from ABC, CBS, NBC. They don't see any bias there. And yet the same kind of stuff that is used against the Republicans is used against Apple. I said, okay, you Apple fans, maybe you can get an idea of what it's like in the mainstream news media. Anyway, the whole point was missed because the blogs that chose to react to this chose to react to me within the caricature that I've been portrayed. So it's frustrating, but Carson is exactly right when he says this. A lot of people have tried to demonize Limbaugh, so people look at what he says in light of that as opposed to the merits of what he says. He wasn't through. He continued.
I think, Rush Limbaugh, on one side, some of the people we see on MSNBC on the other side, we need to stop, taking these people and say, you're bad, you're good. Forget about all that stuff. Listen to what they have to say and analyze the merits of what they have to say rather than always trying to focus on the individual.
Good point. It's an excellent point, and it takes bigness to get past your prejudices and your biases. To get past your smallness, it takes bigness to get past your smallness. That's these tech blogs that reacted were just. You should have seen the snarkiness. It was childish and immature. Purposely missed the point. Purposely didn't get the point. Maybe they're thinking about it anyway.